Hi and welcome to this basic introduction to the C# programming language. In this lesson we're going to be looking at constructors, passing arguments to constructors and properties within classes. Okay, so let's go ahead and start a new project, and we'll just call this, make it a console application, and we'll call it constructors and properties, console application, and we'll just wait for the development environment to load in there. And again, we have here our skeleton of a C# program, namespaces, classes, and functions. Here's a method here, and we have such things as constructors, properties within classes. Now, so we will right click in Solution Explorer here. You can get it up from the menu here. Just go to Solution Explorer, and here's the Properties window. Object Browser for browsing all the .NET Framework classes, namespaces. Toolbox if you're doing a graphical application. Now, we've got up here Solution Explorer, so right click and we'll add a class, and we'll call it again the person class. We'll click add, and that will add a file here to our Solution Explorer called person.cs as soon as we're ready here. So here we are. Again, it's within the same namespace as our main application, so any public variables are accessible here in the main method, because we have the same constructors and properties namespace for both our class and our main function. So any public variables within here will be accessible to the main method. Now, I'm going to just create here. Actually, before I do that, I will, I'll do that, right. So we'll just add a member variable. We'll call it, so we'll make it private, because the reason we're making it private is because we're going to access it through a public property, and that's a type of encapsulation where we're protecting and only accessing data members within a class in a very defined way. Now, so private string name, and we'll also create a constructor here. Now, a constructor is like a method or a function which has the same name as the class itself, and it's a public constructor because we want it to be accessible to within this namespace, but out with the class. Whereas name here is a private variable, so it's only accessible within the class. Now, so public person, and you'll notice it doesn't return anything. Oh, right. Wonder why that happened. A little bit of a mistake there. Now, why is that doing that? So hit enter, and okay, because I forgot the function braces at the end of person. Public person, that's better. There we have that there. So we've got a constructor there, and we're also going to pass into this constructor an argument of type string. And we're going to say, just to define him, we'll call it the initial name. So the initial name of the person may change at a later stage, but when the constructor is called initially, and called only once when the object is constructed, and we'll show you that in a moment. And I'm also going to create a property here, public property, accessible out with the class, and it returns a string value, and it's called name. Oh, wrong one. And it has a get accessor and a set accessor. Now, the get accessor will return, let's move some stuff out of the way here, move that up there. The get accessor will return this private variable, right? So that private variable is only accessible through the name property. So we'll put in here return name and colon at the end, and very simply here we'll so this means, oh, just type it properly. This means that this is a keyword value, and what it does is, when we'll see the syntax in a moment, but it takes the value passed in when the property is called and assigns it to this name variable, which corresponds to this private string variable name. So in private again means it can only be accessible through the public property. And one more thing we'll add in here, we'll use the name property. Oh, that's just a mistake there. So you'll see now the name property comes up in IntelliSense, and we'll assign it the value initial name, which is passed in to the constructor. So there we have the shape of a. Obviously, we could have other syntax in here before we set the name to check that it's a suitable value, so let's go and use this within our main function here. So we will simply output to the console using the write method, which we have discussed before. Suppose it was for a database. Enter the name like so, and we'll just close that, semicolon at the end, and we'll read it into a variable called name, and we'll just do that using the console.readLine method, which reads a string from the console and returns a string. So the string returned here, because this is the assignment operator, will be assigned into the string name. As I said previously, this assignment operator means that whatever is on the right hand side is assigned to the value on the left hand side. And in a previous tutorial I said that because C# is a strongly typed language, whatever is on the right hand side has to be of the same type, or a type which is smaller. For example, a short can be assigned to an integer, but you can't assign an integer to a short without casting, as the integer might be bigger than the short, bigger than the value that a short can contain, and therefore data would be lost. So because C# strongly typed, whatsoever is on the right hand side of an assignment operator must be on the same type, or a corresponding type which is of a bigger size on the left hand side. Anyway, so let's move on, we'll talk more about that later. So let's create so we've got a string name, so let's create a person object. You can see our class person object, and we'll call it person1 equals new person, and we'll pass in here this name value that we've read from the console, and then we will output that to the console again, read it back to the console using our property in our class person, and we'll run through this through the debugger to show you how this is exactly functioning. So console.writeLine, so we'll say you entered, and we'll use our array-like functionality again. Position 0 in the array. You entered space comma, and now we'll use the P1 instance of a type person. P1. Oh, what's happening here? Meant to press the dot operator there. P1, and we'll access the name property within our class person, and that will then be you entered. Whatever was entered here from the console will be constructed in the person object here, and we'll run through this. And so you entered, whatever is entered at the console here will be out. Whatever is stored in the property P1's name will be output in this position here. You entered whoever, so for example Alex Deacon or Fred Smith or whatever. So let's run through this. We'll put a breakpoint here by just clicking on the side here, and we'll press start debugging, and we'll run through and just see how this works. So there we go. Enter the name. So we'll say John Smith, and we'll hit the enter button. So we enter the name, we enter, and console.readLine is waiting to read something from the console. It read John Smith and stored it in name, so hence John's name is now John Smith. And now we're going to the constructor here. Now again, F11 will jump into the constructor. F10 will jump just down to the next line here, and will not jump into the constructor here. It will stay in this line of code here. And so F11, let's step it. Let's see where we go from here. If we press F11, we should go to the person.cs class and the constructor person, and passing in John Smith to the constructor. F11. Okay, initial name is John Smith. Initial name John Smith. Name here is null. This is the property here name. So we'll go down, because we're setting the value of the property. We should jump down to here now, and we'll just see that. Oh, just in a moment, not quite yet. And we go down here to set it. Value is John Smith, and we're setting the name, which is the private string name variable here, which hasn't been set yet, because it's different from this name value here, which is within the scope of the main method here. But this name value, which is private to the class person, is within the scope of class person here. Now, so here we are. Press F11, and we're hit this line here, and now name is John Smith, and we'll jump back up to the constructor here, and then so we've been through the constructor. Press F11, back through to our program here, and now our person P1 has been assigned the private property string name has been assigned John Smith for this P1 person. Now, so when we go to console.writeLine, you entered P1.name, which is John Smith. So we'll just step into this and see how this works. So we're getting here within here, we used, this is the syntax for setting the property name. We call the set accessor in that case. Here we're accessing the name property, so we should jump into the get accessor and return the private string name variable, return it here, and we notice that this property takes a return type of string, so that's right because name is of type string. So back here, press F11, jump into the get accessor, return name for this object, P1 object, instance of class person, P1 instance of class person, John Smith, return it, and we return it to console.writeLine, and we should well, it's not been output yet, but if we press F11 we'll jump off the end there and lose it. No, we won't, we'll still see it. So let's jump in here, press F11, and if you look now at our console application, you can see you entered John Smith. You entered P1.name is input here, and for this first position in the array, you entered John Smith. And so there, that's just a general introduction there. I just press F11 here. Oh, just wait for the development environment. Okay, get rid of that breakpoint now. General introduction to getting and accessing via a property, passing an argument to a constructor, constructing an object, using the property to set values of private data members in the constructor, and that'll do for now. General introduction to properties and constructors with arguments. We'll take this a lot further in our next lessons. Thank you for watching.